Hey everyone, it's Clint. I'm going to do this in one take because I don't have time for anything else. Nothing less. We're going for it. Okay, so story time. I went with my brother on, Saturday night to take him comic shopping. Now, we've been talking about doing this for a few weeks now. I said it would be fun for me to make a video for my YouTube channel and I could bring you and we could go look at some comic books and we could pick something that you might be interested in because he doesn't read comics. And I really, I'm always trying to convert people around me to reading and loving comics just as much as I do. And so we'd planned to do it. Something always came up. So we weren't able to do it. We pushed it back. Finally, Saturday night, we went to go, shop for comics. I said, I will buy you some comics. We're going to find some good stuff and I'll buy them for you. Now, we went out it was like 8:30 at night. And the thing is, I look online at local comic shops and I did not realize that literally everything anywhere close closed down at 9 o'clock. So that didn't give us very much time, especially not to make a video of us comic shopping together. So it was a little frustrating. So we went to a comic shop that said it was open a little bit later because they sold comics and games. This is not a problem, but they're Haster's Games and Comics. It was in their title, the name of it, and I've heard them on the radio several times advertising. And so we went there. It was the first time I've ever been to that shop. Went there and soon discovered they had scraped off the end comics. It was just Haster Games. They'd scraped off the end comics on their, the signs on the windows, and they didn't sell comics anymore. And it was a little depressing, but at the same time, I thought, isn't this the way that it's going? This is how it has been everywhere. And so what we decided to do is we looked around for a little bit, realized there were no comic books. We said, let's find something that's open. And granted, it was almost 9 o'clock. And so we were really limited on what shops would be open. So we did look around, and the next thing I could find was, several miles away. And we found a shop that was basically like a coffee shop that also sold comics. So we thought, oh, this is great. That's why they're open a little bit later, is because they don't just rely on comic books to pay the bills. So we went there, and it turns out they were just selling. It was a fire sale on any comics that they had in the shop. It was really embarrassing. It was definitely mainly just a coffee shop. We walked around. They had some random issues, and they were just trash, like stuff from Virgin Comics. Do you remember Virgin Comics? They had issues from that, random issues. Nothing was bagged or boarded. There was one short box that had single issues in it that we thumbed through. Again, it was just trash. And then they had a couple bookshelves that had a very sparse selection of trade paperbacks. We looked through those. Most of them were just garbage. And the thing is, some of them were completely wrapped up and sealed, like hard covers that were wrapped up and sealed. And that's because, they're not worth reading. So no one had read them. And the ones that had been read had just been hammered. And everything was just super cheap. They were trying to get rid of all of it. And we ended up leaving. I bought one trade paperback from Image that was $5. So, you know what the problem was? We weren't able to make that video because we weren't at a legitimate comic shop that had some kind of selection and a little bit of time and, not awful smells going on. We had to be able to find a good place to go and peruse comics and find the right kinds of things that he might be interested in as a new comic book reader. The thing is, even with the very small selection that was there and the random issues, it got to this point where it was like, what really is the point of a comic shop if you can't find any starting point, and if you can't even find, a reason to buy anything there? That's what I felt like we were missing, was a reason. Like there was some kind of, motivating factor that gave you a reason to want to buy it. And so no matter what happens online, with anything online, especially in the comics community, we've still got to wrestle with this deal that the face of comics and selling comics is changing. And there's some things that big publishers can do. Absolutely. There's some things that comic shops could do, maybe. But there's still, I mean, it just times have changed. And so selling things in a brick and mortar store become much more difficult. So how do you navigate things? Now, I've heard of TKO publishing, but that's about it. I didn't really look into much of anything. And then I did the little stream last night. Eric was talking a little bit about them. And so I thought, this is interesting. This is worth putting a video together. And so he was explaining how they release comics, and it's all at once. It's like a binge read opportunity, and you can buy the trade paperback for $20, it looks like. Or you can go to the 6-issue box set, and so you get the 6 issues all collected. They're in a box that you open up, and it's got everything. You could rest it on your bookshelf with everything else, or I'm assuming you could bag and board those issues. Whatever you want to do, it's there, and that's $10 more if you want the 6 issues box set. This is how they release everything. I'm really curious to look under the hood, if I could, and see how these things sell. Like, are people more often just buying the trade paperback, or are people buying the 6-issue box set? If you're purchasing anything from TKO Studios, I'm really curious to know which one you buy. But I think, couldn't I do this with crowdfunding? This is amazing. It would definitely be a bit of an investment up front in order to get your issues, and however you're able to make these boxes and get those printed and manufactured. But that would be a really cool package to get, is 6 issues in a box set. Or I guess you just have the trade paperback and they just release them all together so you can binge watch. And that's, I don't know, it makes sense with sort of the streaming Netflix culture that has developed over time. I can't even say if any of this works. I have no idea. I've never looked under the hood. I think I might buy one of these just to see and do some comparisons and, decide, I guess, my own opinion on it. But this is, I think, really, really interesting. How is that? One take. All right. So thanks very much for watching this video. I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are. How can we position things so that you can provide comics in an easy to obtain format, supporting comic shops or otherwise? I'd love to know your opinions. And if you've ever tried out TKO, what are your thoughts on the publisher itself? And don't forget to like, subscribe, ring the bell, all that great stuff. And I will see you in another video.